Hi everyone, I'm Rob Hawkes.
I'm Chris Blackburn.
And as you know, we run Training Tuesdays every week, 4:30. At the moment though, with the coronavirus pandemic hitting the country and the world, we're going to be running Training Tuesdays remotely. Isn't that right, Chris?
That's correct. So everybody stay safe. We will still be ensuring that the training happens on a weekly basis, but we will be working remotely through that process too.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome everybody to Training Tuesdays. It is Tuesday the 26th of May. If you're wondering where my partner in crime, Chris Blackburn, is, if you've seen him, let me know. No, of course, he's just there on the back end of a conversation and he'll be with us shortly. So I'll have to keep my, there he is. I'll have to keep my eyes peeled for him, so I'll figure that out as we go. But today we're going to be covering continuing on the series of building rapport. Hey Chris, how are you?
Good afternoon. Apologies, I'm running a couple of minutes late. How are you doing?
You are all good. Yeah, I'm really well, mate. Yeah, just haven't been having a yarn with some of the guys. So how's your day been?
Yeah, it's been nice and productive and busy as well. It's one of them things where you feel like you've had a productive day. Hey Jared, how you doing? But it's one of them that you really wish that it was kind of 8 o'clock again, but you've done everything you have and you still have another 9 hours. It just feels like one of them days today, but definitely not complaining with that.
One of them days.
So while Bobby's, Mr. Hawkes is multitasking, we will jump into a couple of things and just make sure everybody's sort of ready and raring to go on the session today. Hey Brandon, hey Ian.
Good to go. We are good to go. I'm ready.
Rob Hawkes, you have surprised me.
So today, as I said, we're going to be covering. No, Chris, you tell us. What are we covering today?
So today we're going to be covering effective and efficient questioning. So Rob's probably already covered it, but pen and paper, water at the ready.
Oh, I didn't actually. That's your thing. I'll forget that.
So if everybody can get a pen and paper, water at the ready, we'll run through and be as practical as we possibly can today. As always, the more you give us and the more that you ask questions, the I guess more specific we.
Today, as I said, we're going to be covering. Oh, sorry, that's me. So one of the things that I always say every week, and this is something that someone mentioned to me the other day, we always say about liking, sharing, and subscribing to to the content, and actually wondering why. There's something around on different settings on different. I'm going to just. The reason why I'm talking about this, so it makes sense, but there's actual different settings on different social medias about subscribers and whatnot, and it's really important to get that engagement going in all sorts of different areas. So commenting, liking, subscribing, there's different benefits on YouTube and stuff for that, so there's a reason why we always say that. So if you're not getting that done on your socials, then you definitely should. So there's a reason for that, getting engagement and whatnot. So so we're into a series that we're doing on rapport building. So it's our professional rapport building series, part 3 of 6, love a series. And as Chris said, we're covering effective and efficient questions. We're going to be looking at why that's important. So why being able to ask effective and efficient questions is important. We're going to be looking at what they are, how to use them. We'll probably give a couple of examples, and then we'll probably do a couple of takeaways as well. So last week, what did we cover, Chris? What did we go through?
Last week, and I guess just for a few people that's been a part of this 3 or 4 weeks, let's get the interaction going inside there. Any major takeaways from anybody that's been through here from the last 3 weeks? Again, as Rob always said, that can come back in our face if there's 0, but there's certainly people in there that have been with us all through this process as well. So maybe over the last 3 weeks, any major takeaways that you've been able to take into yourselves personally, professionally, just jot them into the chat and we can certainly reference on the back of that as well. But to answer your question, Rob, last week we covered big picture questions. So why we use them, what and how, and some examples and the importance of them as well. Waiting for Eric to 1, 2, 3, wait, mate, that's so powerful. I think allowing what Eric's referencing there is if we're in a line of communication, allowing that little gap or that pause within asking a question and receiving the answer to asking the next question to keep the communication smooth. I feel like that's very, very powerful. So that's an awesome takeaway, and I'm glad to hear that's obviously been going well for yourself. Ian, amazing to see you as always. Don't use generic messages. Yeah, voice messages is breaking the mold. That was the first session we did. But just going on to that, Rob, around big picture questions, just to sort of show the difference of the way that can sort of look. If everybody can be on the chat, ready to go again for people that may not have been a part of this. As a question for everybody watching today, one word, what do you like?
Same on Facebook. So we've got Mandy, Nick, Casey, Herman, hi all, David, Shane, Miriana. So get involved.
Yeah.
Just a recap from what Chris spoke about. What do you like?
So we've got pizza, alcohol. Hopefully we've got money or sales in there. Fingers crossed from a couple of people. The beach. So as a few things are sort of rolling through, and then maybe on Facebook, it just shows that big picture questions don't really have any framework. You know, inside the online academy that I guess a lot of people are a part of this, to jump back in there and download the Audible and re-listen to it. You know, me and Rob show this every week. Repetition is king. You know, the more that we keep retaining information and re-watching content is why we add these sessions into our online training program every week, is so people can go back and refresh what they've learn and implement. You know, it's the reason I do webinars every single day, is to make sure I'm growing. But if I read one book once or watch one movie, I'll probably won't remember it. But if I keep watching it, there's a likelihood I'll remember it.
Yeah, and I think we're getting some interesting ones on Facebook. Dogs, boxing, holidays, Valentino Rossi, and hey Frankie, cycling. So yeah, there's definitely reasons why we recap for, again, like Chris just said, in regards to repetition. It breeds familiarity. Familiarity breeds confidence. So it's important to understand that the more that we do something, the more confident we are. Someone asked me today about how do I be more confident? Well, the answer is just to do something again and again. Make sure that you're always doing the same thing to become better at it. You know, the understanding that the more that you do it, the more confident you'll become. So
just to add on to that as well, you know, from a first party perspective, the reason that me and Rob's been doing this from the turn of the year is not to hopefully offer more value to more people as well, but you know, it's a personal development. You know, for me personally, if you'd have said to myself 6 months ago, go in front of the camera in front of business owners and people all over social media, there's no chance in the world I'd be doing that. But every week I look forward to it more, and the reason behind that is because it's repetition. This is episode 18, I believe. I had a yearly goal to do 12 this year. We're halfway through the year and we've already done 18. So that just shows the more you do it, the more hopefully confidence breeds and you become, you know, better at it.
Yeah, and we talk about the levels of competency as well. Ryan's covering that in the 14-day challenge for those of you who are in there, you know, learning about the conscious and unconscious competency levels. So understanding that there are levels of that, you know, when you're unconsciously incompetent, when you don't know what you don't know. When you first started this, Chris, you would have been consciously incompetent with it because you'd never done it before. With in the nicest possible way. But that's just the learning cycle we're on. So if anyone wonders why we continually reference back what we've done previously, it's because of that very reason, so that there becomes familiarity with it. But we're going to move on to the topic today, which is effective and efficient questions. I'm going to get you to write down my favorite quote, which is, again, based on Rapport: nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. The reason being is that we want to build rapport so that the individuals that we're dealing with genuinely, hand on heart, believe that we care. And it's not about just sort of buying into that maybe they do or don't. It's a genuine, okay, no, I actually feel like that person, I really, really do believe in that they buy into me. And
that question on that, Rob, as well. Sorry, so I've just done not the 1, 2, 3. I've done opposite to that. You know,
3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, I've just decided to jump in. So, but I found that was very, very crucial. Obviously, we you know, work, and I've been very guilty for it before, where you ask the big picture question and you move on to the next. Why, in your opinion, with the coaching that you do for the numbers of clients you look after, why is effective questioning so important? You answer the question, mate.
Yeah, I think from a coaching perspective that I can't make assumptions, just like we don't want to make assumptions in sales. I can't make an assumption on a coaching call that whether it be a new client or not, about what they want to cover. Also in understanding about what they want to get out of the sessions. I can't just make an assumption to say just because they've invested a couple of grand that they're ready to go, and they you know, they might have some reservations. They might never had coaching before. So I think for me, it's about, if I can ask them, you know, what are you looking to achieve out of this? But then not just deal on the surface level of that. Oh, I want to get better at sales. And I could go, okay, great, I'm going to go and teach you this. So actually, okay, well, unpack that for me. What do you mean by better at sales? Or, you know, or I want to, it's the same for you. Like, well, actually, I'll ask you the question then. So for me, it's about digging deeper to find out what they want to achieve on the call. Why would effective questions be important to you in a sales context? Just like I would for, you know, to dig deeper from a current client, for example. It's the same thing. It's all still sales, but what about from you from a new client acquisition perspective?
I feel for me, it proactively uncovers the real objection, as crazy as that sounds. But when we're consulting with a customer to see whether our products and services with anything that you offer can truly help that individual, you've got to ask the right questions. So I find, you know, going through a formula of when we're discovering and we're building rapport is the rule of thumb is having 5 to 7 highly effective questions, but that naturally has to start with a big picture question as well. So we teach it on a what we call PST. So for people taking notes, that's what we call primary, secondary, and tertiary level questions. So until we can get to the, like Rob's just there, the undercover or the why behind the customer, again, we referenced a book, Start With Why from Simon Sinek. It's so powerful from a consult. Like, we deal with a lot of people that objections is the big thing. Objections and closing is the one area that we want to work on. Whereas Swish and ethical sales trainers, we look at the discovery part to ensure that when you're trying to find out the client's needs, you're really digging deep into that. So as a brief formula and as a practical for people taking notes today, the way that I would do this is ask the question, receive the answer. Next question, answer. Question, relate. So again, I'll go through that. So it's normally question, answer, question, answer, question, relate. So as an example, Rob, what is it you like?
I am a big fan of football.
Of football, okay. And any particular team that you like to sort of follow there?
Yeah, Man United.
Man United. And what would the main reason be why you support Man United?
Because the reason that I tell everyone is that I had family that were in Manchester, which is true. The real reason was that they were the best team.
They were the best team.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, and I wish I could have followed that suit, because I was brought up through my dad, and I support a team called Rotherham that nobody in Australia will have even heard of. So unfortunately, I didn't get them sort of choices, mate. So maybe I can look at that. Do you see how I've now naturally built rapport with Rob, where now I can connect to him where he's from? He's not from Manchester, the reason that he now supports that team. So if I'd have just asked him, what do you like? And he'd have said football, I go, yeah, me too. I'm from England, so I love football as well. And how long have you been with ISR training for? Do you see how we're scratching the surface? Where if I have a genuine interest to understand why he supports that team, relate that back to your business. I know that's talking sport, but again, if we're consulting with a customer, 5 to 7 effective questions, what are the questions we're asking and how are we digging deeper to then build the natural level of rapport? We don't have time to go through it today, but the way we build rapport socially is through a methodology FORD that stands for family, occupational, recreational, and dreams. So when you're looking to build rapport socially, now that Rob sort of shared his story, I can build rapport with them social aspects.
And also as well, like, don't disregard the social aspects within the professional setting. I think that, you know, there are, and these kind of lines of questions can come very naturally. For the guys that were on just before, I was talking about one of the guys, Braxton, that I was just chatting to, was talking about his trip from the UK, and it just kind of happened naturally. You know, it's like, well, but also not trying to relate to every single thing, every single point, because otherwise then you'll end up, as we talk about the negotiation ladder, we don't want to stray too far into jungle or desert. So I believe an effective question in and around that would be, can you ask those rapport-based questions, but still be able to bring it back to the reason why that you're talking to in the first place? So if I'm talking about, for example, in this case, travel, that can I then relate through that conversation by asking them a question, receiving an answer, asking them another question, getting under the surface, receiving an answer, and then actually asking one more question, but then relating, can I then bring that back around to the topic in hand? Because ultimately, effective questions are making sure that we don't waste the customer's time or yours.
Correct.
So, think about maybe one word inside of here is focus. Hey, Christine, you just made it on. She says, hi, Chris. Focus. Why are you talking to this person in the first place? Can you redirect the conversation back by respecting the point that's been made and relating to it, but thinking about ways that you can find common ground around your product or your service? So, for example, travel, talking around, it's interesting you say that, Qantas, because we work with a couple of individuals closely in Qantas, and they were speaking about how, long haul flights are going to be changed in the next, year to 18 months. And suggesting that I'm actually building value around a client that we've worked with, Qantas, or someone who works in Qantas, and then transitioning it back to talking about sales training. So, but it's important not to do that on the first point. Somebody might be talking about their children, or they might be talking about a place that they've been. And I go, yeah, it's funny, children, because all of my clients have got children, or one of my clients have got children. Anyway, back to what we were talking, it doesn't really work. So you actually do.
Fine line.
You are sorry?
There's a fine line, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just, can you be clear and relative to what the actual question is for, and what is your purpose to the question that you're asking, and are we straying too far into the realms of I'm just having a chat with a mate, or is there relative purpose to that? But I guess what Chris's point was asking more questions to get under the surface and uncover that real reason, which, as you mentioned earlier, people saying that they have objections, can we actually dig out and find out those objections before they even come?
Hopefully, does that all make sense for everybody in there? Because we can't see you physically. Just again, another why in the chat, that formula around question, answer, question, then relate. Does that sort of make sense for people in there? And the way I sort of train that as well, Rob, like when you're walking down a busy city centre and you see the guy with a clipboard and he tries to stop you, and you think, he's just going to ask me 25 questions straight. Like the enthusiasm level drags out a little bit, where, if, like you said, if people just relate to every answer, it's like, we have a place in Spain called Tenerife, and you used to have your mates that used to say, yeah, I've been to 11 Tenerife. They've done everything, like, I think having that fine line between the two is crucial. So I follow a rule of thumb, 5 to 7 questions when I'm consulting, asking the questions that's relevant to what we're going to present as well, to ensure whether it's going to be right for that client, but really then digging deep and understanding the information that they're providing. I feel like it's such a powerful thing to ask the effective question too.
And someone, I guess, when we're talking about trying to, someone mentioned it, I think it was you or some that I was talking to earlier, around objection handling and it being an area that a lot of people always struggle with. What type of questions then effective? So we're not talking big picture, but what sort of effective questions then could somebody use to uncover an objection early? Because there's a difference between specific questions, which is our 6th in this series. So just so you guys know the difference between the two. So specific questions are, what's your current budget? What size do you want? Like Ian with your signs, what size do you want? That's a specific question. What color do you want? Niall, sorry. What type of coffee are you after? What machine have you already used? They're specific questions. But what would you consider to be an effective question, Chris, to bring out potentially an objection, like I don't have time, or I need to think about it. What do you think that people watching today, or we're not going to give them all, obviously, but maybe one example or two of an effective question based on objections that people receive, do you think?
Yeah, I think asking questions around the qualification standpoint. So it could be the case of, you know, how long have you been in business for? They say 3 years. Oh, amazing. There you go. And is it just yourself, or have you got somebody else running the company with you? Oh, yeah, perfect. We've got a co-founder. Okay, I'll bank that, because there's a likelihood when it gets towards the back end, they're going to say, thank you for the information. I'm going to have to now speak with the business partner. So I find that naturally can uncover an objection of, I need to speak with the partner, or, you know, have you invested in yourself before, personally or professionally? No, I haven't. Okay. And is it something that you do off your own back? Have you got somebody else that would sort of be doing it with you, or is this just a decision by yourself?
And also, like, why? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because then I could say, if I was, let's say, investing in something that was important for my partner Ellis to be a part of this decision, I could say, well, I've reached out, but obviously we need to speak about it as a collective, to see what's going to be right for us as a couple moving forward. Then I've received that intel, and then I can say at the back end, I wouldn't go for a close. I say, now, obviously there's a couple of ways we can sort of look at that. If you've seen enough value, we have the opportunity to work with yourself moving forward. But with the information that you'd like to receive, what would you like to be on there? I mean, how would you portray that to your partner? And you're using the intelligence that you've gathered on the front end to then utilize on the back end to show that you've actively listened and you've got, you know, value from the client too.
And I guess for on the back of that, why, how, what type questions? You know, why do you feel that way? How did you come to that conclusion?
Why?
They're not specific, but it's not big picture. You're not asking, okay, well, yeah, give me the overall feeling of it, and, you know, what does perfect look like? You're actually saying, if you ask what does perfect look like, then asking them why is that important to you, or how are you looking to incorporate that in that agreement, and then not actually going too specific, because there's a difference. And I think you can almost use that primary being your big picture, your secondary being effective, and then your tertiary level question can be the specific one. When you combine all three with that relate, which is what we're doing through Rapport, I think you'll find that will definitely help. Maybe in the chat, guys, if you want to think about some questions that you're asking, just pop them in there. You know, some effective questions that you feel that you ask, because sometimes it's great coming from me and Chris, but perhaps there's a question that you ask. Maybe we can clarify which is whether it's an effective, whether it's a specific, and so on and so forth. But because I feel like the best, sometimes the best ideas can come from other people, especially when we've got a lot of business owners, you know, entrepreneurs and professionals inside of our training, sometimes that they can really offer a lot of value there. So
I think Ian's popped one in there, Rob, if you want to have a look at that.
Who is your target market? So I guess I guess that would be an effective question. So who are you targeting? I think there would probably be a previous question to that. So if you've had, okay, what's the nature of your business would be a big picture. You know, what do you do? And then, okay, and understanding what you do, who would be your target market? Okay. And then they might say, oh, okay, well, my target market is small to medium businesses. Okay, and what type of industries do you work with? Okay, cool. So you've got that. Okay, it's interesting you say that, because we work with a lot of companies that do X, Y, and Z. There's your relate, and then you can ask a specific question after.
And I think the importance around the relate is to increase value, as we've probably not said for a few weeks, but increase value in you, the individual, through first and third party stories. A part of rapport building, we'll be covering a section on third party stories again. And making sure it's building more value in the company and the products and services. When you're relating, that's for me the kicker to add value in one of the three. Yeah.
Always lending value towards McP, we always say, or PMC. Oh no, it's McP, isn't it? Mandy said on Facebook, hey Mandy, what are your expectations of my product? So yeah, what are your expectations? I think that when we manage people's expectations, when we learn and understand that, we're not assuming that we already know that, which is great. So I guess just trying to think around what type of questions you're asking. And then in a couple of weeks' time, we're also going to be touching very briefly on tonality. So we're going to be looking at pitch and cadence and that kind of thing. So, obviously it's not only important around what type of questions you're asking, but also how you're saying it. Everybody's going to have a different, obviously tone and pitch to their voice, different accents and whatnot. I was talking to Andreas about that earlier, Chris, Andreas Schultz, and, being German, he said that he finds that the tone is actually quite a difficult thing to manage. But so we'll be covering tonality, not next week, because like you said, third-party stories next week.
Yeah.
After is tonality.
Like we said, the reason we wanted to break down the 6 stages to building rapport, we respect for obviously the content in the academy. It's going to be 3 hours worth of content, but me and Rob just found it was quite important just to break down the 6 steps. Now, obviously, like anything we educate ourselves, it's about taking the information and applying it to your process. With the numbers of people that we have inside this session today, it's physically impossible to tailor it into all the different industries and organizations. So the reason that we sort of try and give a framework is that when you go away for a practical, you can then relate that back again, funny enough, to your business and your processes to ensure that you're understanding what the customer's looking for. So jump back in and try and incorporate all these 6 sessions into one. And when you're consulting with a client, try and apply all of the areas in it as well.
Just maybe not all at once.
Maybe a long consult.
well, I think also in terms of application, going back to what you said to me around an effective question that I would ask in my role about, okay, well, how do you want this session to go? Or I want to learn this. Okay, and why is that important to you? It also helps me understand whether or not that's the actual thing that they need training on. Because one person might be saying, well, as you say, I really need help with closing. Okay, so an effective question, well, why do you feel that you need help with closing? Well, because when I get to the close and I ask for the business, they say they need to think about it. Okay, so perhaps maybe it's not that you need help with closing, it's that you need help with building value throughout the consultation before you get to the close. Because really, we shouldn't be asking for the business until we know categorically that they're likely to move ahead, that we built value. So I think in summary, being really understanding, or being really, being understanding of, or having an understanding of when and where to use effective questions. Really dig deeper to understand somebody's point of view, perhaps, learn and understand that maybe they've said something that they want, but if you truly understand what they want, maybe, for example, in ours, they might say, oh, I really, really want to do in-house training. But when we actually find out what they really want, and we ask how many courses they've done or completed, they go, oh, well, I kind of switch off, and actually I'll go and do these courses and I never implement anything. Well, actually, maybe you might be better off doing the academy then, because with constant regular check-ins, being able to access the training 24/7, do you think that would be beneficial? Okay, and then we can go into specifics. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that just before we finish.
No, I think it's important, because then you're selling not only your favorite feature, but what the customer is going to benefit from most. So it's easy for you to create a couple of days worth of training for a few $1,000s, or potentially over the course of 12 months for half the investment, and still deliver the same training for the same results, but more long-term. Sometimes it's our duty to then direct the customer in the right way. And that's where we become an expert in our field and be able to elaborate that through third-party stories that rolls into next week, obviously, so we can run through them again next week. But that's essentially what we'll be covering next week.
Awesome. Third-party stories. So just as we wrap up then, guys, we've got 2 minutes to go. So next week we'll be covering third-party stories. The week after we'll be covering tonality. So again, come ready with any questions or anything that you want to get out of the session next week. Remember to, as always, like the post on Facebook, share it, subscribe to our YouTube channel. There is a whole bunch of content on YouTube that we post and have feeding through. Lots of little 1 minute, 2 minute little bites from Ryan and Jack when they've gone out to do training. We've got a whole media team that are working really hard behind the scenes to pump that content out. So if you like this, and you want to go and get a little bit more, then yeah, jump into YouTube if you're not in the academy. Obviously, if you're in the academy, it's all there. But I quite like the YouTube thing as well, as a medium for it. But really encourage you to go and do your due diligence if you've not done it before. If this is the first time that we've been meeting you, then we really appreciate your time. For all our academy clients in there, then again, thank you for joining us. Chris, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, beautiful. So again, as always, thank you so much for the time. There's a reason that me and Rob want to do it. We want to try and be as valuable as possible through this time, as well as a company, as individuals as well. So feel free to reach out to us individually if there's any specific things that you would like assistance with, or anything we can do as an organization. Pop us into Google, give us a call, add us on LinkedIn, do whatever you need to do. As always, it's a pleasure to have people taking time out of their busy week to listen to a couple of English guys talk about sales and negotiation and everything that we do. So yeah, I appreciate everything that people do for us.
What's special, just before we wrap up now, what's special about next week? Where are you going to be?
Oh mate, as long as there's not a crazy news story, I'm going to be sat next to Mr. Hawkes, back in the office with the team and getting back to normality. I mean, I'm sure everybody's excited to feel a bit more normality. So mate, I cannot wait to do we have to sit 1.5 meters apart?
Oh,
surely not.
That's a really good question. I'll give Scott Morrison a ring, and I'll see what we have to do for that.
Yeah. So if me and Rob bend the rules next week, don't shop us in. We'll
he'll be on the live.
Yeah,
maybe we'll have to have separate screens and do it opposite. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. But yeah, that was a big bow on it anyway. But have an amazing evening. Stay safe, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next week as well.
We will see you then. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.